Until a century ago, urban areas were some of the unhealthiest places for people to live. The increased density of populations in urban areas led to the rapid spread of infectious diseases. Consequently, death rates in urban areas historically were higher than in rural areas. The only way urban areas maintained their existence until recently was by the continual in-migration of rural people. In 1800, only about 2% of the world's population lived in urban areas. The globalization of markets, the desire for higher education, increased use of communication, and new information technologies are the driving forces behind urbanization. For the first time in history, more than 50% of the world's population lives in an urban area. By 2050, 70% of the world's population will be living in towns and cities. Health challenges particularly evident in cities relate to water, environment, violence and injury, non-communicable diseases such as cardiovascular diseases, cancers, diabetes, and chronic respiratory diseases, harmful use of alcohol, as well as the risks associated with disease outbreak. City living and its increased pressures of mass marketing, availability of unhealthy food choices, and accessibility to automation and transport all have an effect on lifestyle that directly affect our health.
You come to the wilderness to get in touch with yourself. You don't come out here to get away from it all, but to get back to it all. You don't get lost out here, you find yourself. You come home to what's important. You come home to yourself.
Wilderness therapy features assessment, intervention, and treatment of problem behaviors and assessment of outcomes. It involves immersion in an unfamiliar environment, group living with peers, individual and group therapy sessions, educational curricula, and application of primitive skills such as firemaking and backcountry travel. These processes are all designed to address problem behaviors by fostering personal and social responsibility and emotional growth of clients. Young people aged 12 to 17 are the most frequent clients. The wilderness therapy process is guided by a cleansing phase, a personal and social responsibility phase, and a transition and aftercare phase. Common anticipated outcomes included client-strengthened self-concept by clients and new skills and knowledge, leading to an understanding of the consequences of their behavior. These realizations typically lead clients to desire a better relationship with parents, to continue to develop emotionally, to be more appreciative, and to see personal problems in a different light. The emergence of wilderness therapy demonstrates the value of wilderness as a healing source for adolescents who are not being reached by traditional therapeutic techniques. In the early 1900s, Kurt Hahn began developing his philosophy on the value of including nature in education. He held the belief that young, maturing individuals were basically pure at heart and became corrupted by the creations of man that so enveloped every aspect of their lives. Since the 1930s, his ideas began to take hold and spread throughout the world and encouraged a whole new field of study.
All the hustle and bustle of everyday life, especially in the city, it can be difficult to step aside and enjoy the benefits of a personal relationship with nature. Noting this problem, many architects and city planners have, increasingly over the years, begun to incorporate nature into buildings and city landscapes. This type of biophilic design is very unintrusive and yet very intuitive to human aesthetic appeal. Right here in the city of Sydney, Central Park sets a prime example of the current benchmark for biophilic design. This can be seen across the world in nearly every major city.
This building, One Central Park, was the first major building on the Central Park to make a very positive contribution to the surrounding areas through creating a large parkland where there was none in the past. So this new development has got a large park at its centre. On the whole, I think it's got about 30,000 square metres of landscaped area, including the vertical walls and the parkland. So it's a very, very significant contribution to the area. How could you do something so strange in a way that makes commercial sense? And that is the miracle of this building, that it is an extraordinary, very unusual building, but it's built in very conventional ways. One example of that might be the enormous amount of greenery on the building. When you look at it from any perspective, it's just bizarre, completely unusual, unprecedented in the city and unprecedented in the world, but it's achieved in a very, very basic way. The aim of this building, of this arrangement, the heliostat arrangement, was to reflect sun from the top of the building adjacent up onto the underside of this sky garden on which we're standing now and back down into the public domain. The intention was to create not a beach-like bright sun environment, but the environment that you would experience as you were walking beneath the tree canopy. It's not a parkland in deep shade, it's a parkland which has got the charm of a forest in a way.
Another Central Park, this one in New York City, gives a different view on how nature can be blended with a metropolitan area. Giving citygoers a place to relax, this park is another perfect example of biophilic design in the modern world.
New York's Central Park is a network of meadows, gardens, and lakes which spans more than 50 city blocks. Central Park was America's first great urban park, created as a place where people from all walks of life could mingle and meditate. 150 years on, and surrounded by wall-to-wall skyscrapers of Manhattan, it offers generous open spaces like the Great Lawn, and smaller treasures too, like the many sculptures and bridges which dot the park. Rising over the woodlands, Belvedere Castle offers great views of the park. While right next door is the Shakespeare Garden, where many of the plants and flowers from the playwright's works spring to life. Central Park, a place where New Yorkers and visitors alike can breathe and simply be.
Around the world, many organizations continue to uphold the tradition of practicing wilderness therapy and outdoor education. Consider the Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts of America, two leaders in the field who have used these techniques for decades. By making this type of therapy more mainstream, groups like the Scouts have changed the way the world thinks about incorporating the outdoors into therapeutic activities.
Be prepared. Are you ready to get going? Be prepared. Are you ready to take the lead?
Do you think you know what scouting's all about? Take a look.
Be prepared. Are you ready to get going? Be prepared. Are you ready to take the lead?
Scouting today is a lot more than you think. Join your local troop.
Don't be afraid to think about wilderness therapy as an option. It can be used simply to adjust your state of mind, help you find peace, or shift away from the frenzied pace of a typical modern human life. Wilderness therapy has more support now than ever thanks to its success and burgeoning acceptance within the scientific community. So don't be afraid to step outside and be reminded that humans really are, after all, a part of nature as a whole.